Good morning, back with another video, and it is, I don't know, getting close to 7 o'clock. I just woke up about half an hour ago, and I'm stirring around and getting ready to finish a sewing project that I've been working on, which I will share some of my sewing on this channel. I'm going to be posting this video on both of my channels because I think that this information is very important, and it's something that I think is helpful. Um, for my first channel, it's basically an explanation of why kind of a brief explanation of why I behave the way that I do. And for my new channel, it is basically for people of like mind who will see the benefits of keeping yourself contained and being very selective about your social interactions and your overall view of yourself. Now, this video is basically to explain why I believe in focusing on the self and limiting my expressions of concern and love for outside people. Now, some people may think, well, you come off as self-absorbed. I would say that that's not true. I'm a very generous, giving person, okay? And I don't like to say those things because it sounds like, oh, you're arrogant. And I hear other people talk about how they've made donations and how they've done, charity work. And I don't ever want to come off sounding anything like that. I am truly disgusted by a lot of the behavioral standards and the, or I should say, lack of behavioral standards um, of society as a whole. But I do believe that by focusing more on yourself, you're more likely to accomplish things that you want to do. It's been proven, and you can look at this example for instance, by dispersing more affection and care on people that are undeserving often puts you in a very compromising position. There's been times where I've been helpful to people, many of the people that I've worked with, in the past, and then they were eager to disrupt my life in a way that was completely unjustified. So if you're looking at it from a religious standpoint, or you're looking at it from more of a humanistic standpoint. From like, what I mean by humanistic is somebody who may not even consider the possibility of any sort of spiritual afterlife or any sort of God or entity, but they're just more looking at it in a way that's practical for earthly life. How you can get along in society by using moral standards without religious dogma. So however you look at it, people tend to be, I hate to use the word evil because it sounds very harsh, but people tend to do things that affect people in a negative way. And oftentimes they they tend to be very hurtful to other people. Based on selfish motives, or the ideas of basically putting other people at a disadvantage. And so when considering um, who you should love and who you should care for and who you should devote time to, who you should be generous with, I believe that there should be a selection process. Now, and this is basically how I've come to this determination, is because I've had years of basically, being trampled on, people, taking advantage of me. And oftentimes, when people would take advantage of me, I was in a state of shock. I mean, even though I knew that people had a tendency to be that way, um, I would think that because I myself was being good to them, not that I was doing that for anything or looking for anything in return. It was just like, why would you do something like that after I've done this for you? I've taken you to work. I've bought food for you when you had no groceries. This sort of stuff, and yet still, you end up in situations where people want to hurt you. And so I'm sure many of you have experienced this yourself. And so yeah, it's a wise thing to do, to change your course of direction if you feel you're repeatedly repeatedly um, uh, going through the same pattern of going through abusive relationships of various kinds. So, I believe somebody said something about insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for a different outcome. Well, in my situation, I used to, really take a lot of the, what I call the a fluffy type, passive ideals that people are taught, but actually really don't do them any good. Now, I do believe in forgiving. I do. I mean, but like I said, it depends on. I really try to meditate on it. I pick it through. I mean, I pick out all the scenarios through, and then I try to understand because human error is a given. Okay, people are going to do things. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make bad judgments. They're going to, they hurt other people. Okay, that's exactly what people do. Okay, but sometimes, it was done in a way that was not necessarily malicious or to hurt someone. Okay, but when you look at situations where just like well, I think the judicial system is extremely flawed because I know there's a lot of good people who are behind bars that don't necessarily belong there. But that's a story for another day. But I'm saying is that people oftentimes make error in their judgments. So, um, and we ourselves make error in our judgments when we continually feed people who are basically leeching off of you. So, in order to have a better quality of life, I try to limit my associations and reserve myself for certain people. And I think that it's a very wise thing to do based on my experience and understanding, of course, human nature with all these different elements and components. I've come to the conclusion that in order to have a life that I feel is going to fulfill me, those are the things the necessary measures that I have to take. So I try to be as careful as I can about who I come close to. So going back to focusing on yourself is far more beneficial than what I think is the hogwash about the caring for your neighbor type thing. Because yeah, I think you should have a certain concern for your fellow man. Absolutely. I mean, you don't ever want to do something that's going to affect the life of another person. Okay, like for example, um, I wouldn't never do anything to, like, for example, I wouldn't throw my trash on the neighbor's yard. I wouldn't, um, I don't like to gossip about people. I don't like doing that. I don't like to say things or, and of course, in the past, I've learned, that I used to do those sort of things because it was part of the social function. But in as an adult, I realize how that is in a way damaging a person. It is affecting their life. It is creating a negative effect. Okay, so therefore, there's a certain kind of love, that, like for example, the Bible talks about, love. You must love your neighbor as you love yourself. Those sort of ideals that the Bible promotes. And yeah, what I mean by that is you don't affect human life. You don't cause unnecessary stress in a person's life. You don't damage their property. You don't gossip is one thing. Gossip and slander is one that is very important because you can't you damage a person's character. You pretty much scar them for a very long time. So when I think of love, I think of a universal love that I do show to people. I try to recognize, and I can recognize human suffering. Okay, so I don't like to see suffering. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to help somebody who might need it. Like if there's 10 times I've donated to homeless people. Okay, but sometimes um, you know, sometimes the donations really aren't warranted. Like they're not really, I sometimes think, this person could just be, begging just for whatever. So, I mean, I do have a certain limit in a way of evaluating, who I share and who I care about, on every level. But the kind of love that, the Bible promotes is basically, you know, do unto others as you would do have done to yourself. So it's like, you wouldn't want somebody thrashing your reputation. You wouldn't want somebody, taking things from you or just destroying your property or, doing anything that's going to affect your overall, sense of well-being. So, I don't inflict, things on other people. Now, I will say that if somebody has pushed me into a corner, then I will go ahead and stand up for myself. Okay, I try to stand up for myself in a way that's positive. You know, I try to focus on that issue instead of bringing up all the other issues, like some of the things that my family used to do to me. Like they would bring up stuff like, you're talking about, you left the back door open, so there's like dust and sand blowing in the back door. And so you bring up that, and they'll talk about the Easter Sunday that, you did something wrong 5 years ago. That's just how they are, okay? Which a lot of people are like that. But, you when you're dealing with certain situations, you focus on that particular situation, okay? And sometimes you do have to take, the overall person's lifestyle or something, because some people are just out to abuse you. So you have to think about their personality types as well, as far as how far you're going to go when it comes to things like forgiveness or accepting people into your life. I try I try to be selective, and I generally have I feel more comfortable that way. That's not to say that, like for example, if I haven't been to a party in years, okay? I was like looking at my wardrobe, and I kept thinking everything either looks like something you'd wear to work or something that you would just hang out in the house with, okay? I don't have anything in between. I don't have like a cocktail dress or anything like, because I have no social life. I have zero social life, okay? And so I was thinking, but like, for example, if I'm in a group with people, I'm a polite person. I'm extremely polite. And I think I hold conversations well. I think I interact well with people. I don't come off as, offensive or whatever. Um, so that to me is a form of showing what they call brotherly love or whatever, even though I'm a woman, and I guess you would call it sisterly love. But since I'm showing consideration to everyone, I'm just going to say a universal love. So by showing my consideration towards other people, trying not to say things that are going to offend them. Now, like I said, you offend me, you're going to get it back. So for some of the people that I used to know in this town, if I've offended you, if you remember, like for example, Mary Landucci, not to bring up the stuff, but if I blasted off in your face or if I said something rude, you totally deserved it. Okay, so that's how I look at it. It's tick for tack, an eye for an eye. And then I just let the situation go, okay? And unless, of course, it drags on for like years and years and years and years. But, and then I try to walk away from that person, So going back to the I is me being focused on myself and my ability to see the benefits of that. Like, it's far more beneficial to focus on yourself and be selective about the people that you bring into your life, because that um, that doesn't mean that you should be overprotective, like you just want to be a hermit. I'm a hermit because of the situation, okay? I'm a victim of circumstance in this situation, because believe me, I can be far more social. But when I was thinking about focusing on yourself, you're more um, you're more likely to be as focused. You're more likely to reduce the chances of what I call everyday abuse. You know, everyday abuse is just like, you know, somebody you walking by and people are sitting there gossiping about you. You're, you know, or they're trying to shortchange you in some way, or they're trying to get one over on you, or whatever. This sort of stuff. There's plenty of that in the world, on the outside world. So why invite that sort of stuff into your home? Why, you know, go out and have lunch with that person and hear anything that they have to say? Why listen to any of the gossip that comes out of their mouth? Because chances are, if they're sitting here, you know, gossiping and tearing down somebody while they're talking to you, believe me, they are going to do it to you, okay? Because these people have absolutely no regard for any sort of um, res- respect or life of another person. It's of no value to them. So these are not the kind of people I choose to associate with. I do understand there's times where you have to be you're in a situation where the socializing is somewhat forced. You know, not so much I don't like to use word forced, but regular, or it's more likely. Okay, like for example, sometimes you have to go out to lunch, you know, at work or whatever, so you're clustered around different people that you work with, and they're all different personality types, so you have to have a meal with these people. um, Unfortunately, you know, because I've dealt with my family's issues, I've had to deal with a lot of uncomfortable issues with people that I didn't ask to. But under other circumstances, I'm sure it would have been fine. But you know, while you're dealing with these people, you know, and you're going to have to deal with them. But if you have a choice in the matter, if you have a choice in the matter, why not make one that's, you know, the best choice? Why not be selective about, you know, who you spend time with and who you care about? Because most people aren't worth showing any consideration to. I mean, really, that's been my experience. I don't see where they're worth me thinking about twice. You know, some of the people that I've had to deal with, you know, if I saw them laying on the street, I would just continue to drive, because that's exactly the kind of, you know, and some people think, what, why aren't you going to be concerned about their life? Absolutely not. I wouldn't be concerned about their life. Why? Because they never showed any concern of mine. And if they're going to, some of these people, these perps that got involved in this, okay, I really do think that they didn't understand like the impact. They were just excited about a game or whatever. Some of it's just group mentality. You know, group mentality takes forms and it can get out of hand. And sometimes people aren't even logical in their thinking. Okay, while they're participating in it, it becomes like a sporting event, and people have a tendency to, like, you know, um, instead of like looking at the issue at hand, their competitive nature takes them in a completely different direction, you know, and they want to see blood, they want to see guts, they want to see all kinds of crazy shit, because it's their animalistic nature is just like, you know, it plays a predominant role in their overall identity. But you know, but then there were certain people who may have done it for good intentions. You know what I mean? So when you deal with issues relating to life decisions, it's better to keep it to a very small group of people. If, you know, if it's a one-on-one issue, then it should be a one-on-one issue. If it's something that involves a small group of people, then you have to be selective about it and try to, you know, establish a sense of confidentiality within it. Because once people get involved in your life, you know, on any level, they have a tendency to just wreck it. They just do. So I'm very well aware of that. So by focusing on yourself and only yourself until you find people of quality, it's a way of producing a stronger character. And when I really look at it, it's easy for me to do that because I don't believe that most people are worth the time or effort. Unless, of course, you know, they have a good heart. And if they don't have a good heart, well, I mean, I can be polite and I exchange of, like, I can do commerce with them or whatever. But as far as internalizing them into my life, why bother, you know? Anyway. So I'm going to wrap up this video. I will be back with another one later. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.